you both been?
I've been good.
I've been great.
Yeah.
Colorado's a nice place to be right now.
Yeah, is it nice and sunny? How is the weather over there, Stephen?
Very sunny. One of the best kept secrets about Colorado is that we get over 300 days of sun a year.
Oh, wow.
Really?
We get a lot of sun here. Even in the winter, it's very sunny.
Is that because of the altitude? Is Boulder, Colorado, is it quite high? Is it mountainous? I'm imagining it is so, right?
It is. It's 1 mile high, which I don't know what that conversion is for you, but that's 360, or no, it's 5,600 feet, and it's just east of the mountains, and the mountains hold back all the weather. So that's why the skiing is so good, because the mountains trap the clouds, and the clouds can't pass them. So all that snow and rain stays in the mountains and doesn't get out to us. We are more of almost like a plains, closer to a desert than anything else.
So what you're saying is the mountains are so high, and the power of them is quite phenomenal, that it kind of has some impact on the weather. That's really interesting.
The clouds can't pass the mountains. The mountains hold them back.
Wow.
The mountains go up higher than the clouds.
Whoa. I had no idea about that, because I just thought with weather systems they just push through, and really you're kind of at the mercy of the weather. But no, it seems fantastic. I've always wanted to actually do horse riding in Colorado, just through the mountains, and just something on the list that I want to do before I go to the next dimension. So yeah, it's
I love it. Come on out. I'll do it with you. That sounds like a ton of fun.
That is it. Look, we're going to pin that in the virtual notice board or things to do. And I would love to do that. And
things that we do before we go to the next dimension.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the next dimension, well, we don't know what dimension we'll be in. So.
We won't be in this body. We'll be in some other type of way. We'll have a whole other list of things we want to do before the next dimension after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give our audience an overview of who you are and what you do, because Marie and I, when we had the pre-interview with you for the Expertise Library, we were fascinated by your story. You have a very unique story which falls in alignment with what Marie and I are promoting on the Expertise Library in regards to changing, adapting, innovating and prospering in your professional life and your private life. And although your product is Microgreens, the backstory to Microgreens, we found it to be something that would be of great interest and a great marker in the way you overcome any challenges for the audience. So without further ado, could you just give us an overview of who you are, your product, and then we'll go into your backstory?
Yeah.
Sure. So my name is Stephen Cowan, and I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, and I grew up in a very kind of loving environment around a lot of nature and forest. I went off to university in Michigan. I excelled in tennis. I played there, and I just got a general degree in business and communications. And from there, I went into software sales for about 10 years, traveling all over the country from San Francisco, Chicago, landed here in Denver. And I guess we can go more into the origin story later, but today I'm no longer in software sales. That was a really great career that I did a great job at for a long time, yet I felt my purpose, mission, passion more of helping people connect with plants and healing in themselves. And so I launched a microgreens company. And microgreens are super nutrient dense baby vegetables harvested when they're most concentrated in all the good things like vitamins, minerals, nutrients, antioxidants, different medicinal compounds. And the company is Beyond Microgreens, and it's the first shelf-stable microgreens company in the U.S. And it just helps people fill the nutrient gaps in their diets with whole plants in their most concentrated, nutrient-powerful form.
And we were just talking just before we started the recording. How can people use microgreens? Is it something, I was imagining it to be like, or did you say it was like sprouts? That, and in the pre-interview, you mentioned that in America, at the stage that these plants are in, I think it's it's a phase 2. They are at their kind of sweetest. They have the most nutrients, and they're usually a garnish on nouvelle cuisine in gastronomic restaurants. And you're saying in America it's as a garnish, but over in Europe, in the UK, we actually utilize the plants at this stage. So how can people use your product?
Yeah, so a couple questions there. The difference between sprouts and microgreens.
Yeah.
Sprouts are phase 1 of the plant's life, 2 to 4 days old, typically grown in the dark and submerged in water. And that's a really great time and way to eat the plant as well. And every plant goes through these different phases. Every vegetable goes through these phases. Microgreens are phase 2, 10 to 14 days old. They're exposed to light, so they go through photosynthesis. So there's chlorophyll, there's phytonutrients, and at that 14-day mark is when the plant is peaked out in its concentration of those good things. So it's up to 10 times more potent than a sprout. There's a lot of sprout companies because you can just grow it a lot faster, 2 to 4 days versus 14 days. And 14 days is a lot faster than mature broccoli, which is about 140 days. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between sprouts and microgreens. They're both fantastic. Sprouts, unfortunately, has had a little bit of a bad rap in the U.S. at least, because they're not always grown in the cleanest conditions, and if the seeds aren't clean and the equipment isn't clean, then it's already a bit of a breeding ground for bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella, and that has shown up in the news quite a bit for sprouts. And microgreens entered into the U.S. in the 70s as a garnish at high-end restaurants, so very much like a little beautiful piece of art, like an afterthought. You'd be surprised if it showed up on your plate because it wouldn't even be on the menu. That's how much of an afterthought it is. And so in Europe, who's a little bit ahead of us in that ways in terms of health and wellness, they've been utilizing microgreens in their diet for a long time. You can buy microgreens everywhere in Europe, even at the airport.
Oh, right. And are your microgreens, are they dried? How do they look? So that the audience can get an idea of visually of them before they go out and purchase them from your website. What do they look like?
Yeah,
visually?
At this stage, they almost all look the same. There's so many different types of microgreens, and the one microgreen that we use is broccoli, and it looks like 2 little heart-shaped leaves, and it's on about a 1 to 2 inch stem. So they're very short. They're 2 inches tall with just 2 little tiny heart-shaped leaves, and we freeze dry them. There's a lot of different ways to shelf stabilize plants. You can dry them in the sun. That's a really great way. You can dehydrate them in a dehydrator, which is kind of like a little oven, and freeze dry are kind of the most popular ways. And dehydration, you're retaining about 40 to 50% of those good things while burning off 100% of some things like enzymes. And the shelf life is anywhere from 1 to 3 years, depending on what the plant is and how it's stored. With freeze drying, no heat touches it. Heat over 110 degrees Fahrenheit burns off these good things. So no heat touches it. It starts by just freezing it to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And through that process, it then under pressure pulls out the water. And we're retaining upwards of 97% of all that good stuff. So dehydration, 40 to 50%, burning off 100% of some things, freeze drying, you're retaining up to 97% of everything. And now the shelf life has gone from 1 to 3 years to over 20 years. So it's just a much more like potent way to retain. And most of the food in the space station like that NASA uses is all freeze dried.
Wow. So my last question, and then we'll go into the origin story, the backstory, and Maria will sort of take the baton from there. But I just wanted to ask, so that we see differential value of a vegetable at the growth of a vegetable, and at what stage do we see the majority of vegetables in the supermarket? And then the third, what's the nutritional value? What's the difference between phase 2 and then the fully grown adult phase of the vegetable, just so that we understand the difference? Are we losing something at the adult stage, or are we still gaining?
Good questions. So sprouts phase 1, 2 to 4 days old. Microgreens phase 2, 10 to 14 days old. Some plants, like leafy greens, go through this like baby vegetable phase, like baby greens, like baby spinach, baby kale. That can be up to 30 days old. And then after that is typically adult vegetable. Adult vegetables are 100 days or more. Broccoli, about on average 140 days. And there are some studies on sprouts and microgreens. There's a lot more work to be done here by universities, governments. We're doing work as well and studying lab testing, third-party lab testing, everything that's happening within our microgreens. And there's a lot of ways, a lot of variables that we play with, from the seed to the growing medium to the lighting to how it's processed. There's a lot of variables, and we third-party test along the way. And the numbers that we see is a microgreen is about up to 40 times more concentrated gram for gram than the adult broccoli. The adult broccoli is mainly fiber and water. So all that good concentrated vitamins, minerals, nutrients gets just spread out to the larger plant. It peaks out at about day 14 of that good stuff. And when you are at the farmer's market, that's probably the freshest version of an adult vegetable. If you're at a grocery store, a lot less fresh. Where are these vegetables coming from? Here in the U.S., a lot of them come from South America or the other side of the country. So there's many days of travel. And every day after harvest, that plant is losing nutritional density. So they say even within one day, you've lost 15% of the nutrients. So what does it look like after 1 week or 2 weeks? That's science. It's still being understood. And yet it looks and tastes like a apple, banana, broccoli, and yet there's nothing in it. A lot of this food is, even vegetables are actually empty.
Oh, yes, because that plays into Marie. Do you remember when we spoke to Peter, and he shocked us because he said a lot when are harvested, they're put to sleep. Yes. Do you remember he said that? And we were quite shocked because what impact does that have on our bodies? Are we actually getting anything nutritionally, spiritually from the fruit or vegetable, or is it dead? Really, we're just eating dead or sleepy food, which can't have much benefit for our bodies.
Yeah, we're working on a blog right now to kind of share more information about that sleepy food, but some of the numbers that we're seeing is the average apple and banana in the U.S. is anywhere from 6 months to a year old by the time we eat it, because it's been artificially put to sleep with chemicals and then artificially woken back up with chemicals. So again, these fruits and vegetables look and taste and smell like what they are, yet there's nothing in it, and no one's holding them to any account on like, hey, what's in this stuff? What vitamin A, B, C, K, what type of benefits am I getting from this? I think we'd be very surprised if there was more transparency in what's in our adult vegetables.
Yes,
and fruit.
that is such an eye opener for myself. I'm sure it must be for Marie and anybody who cares about what they eat and they want to obtain the maximum nutritional values from anything they eat. But if they're eating something that's artificially put to sleep, then that must make your biological system sleepy as well. I mean, it just translates. That's quite a worry. Well, hopefully with your product and more research, we get to eat food when it's awake and it's alive and it's active, and we get the benefits of it.